So recently, I came across a post on Instagram where my friend had posted a picture of her supervising a construction site in Vrindavan. She's getting her house done. And she had posted that in order for you to be taken seriously on a construction site, you cannot afford to play a meme sahib. You have to be the sahib on the site. And that got me thinking of all the site experiences that I have had as an architect, and all the experiences and the anecdotes of all my fellow architects and interior designers that I've heard from them, and how they have not been taken seriously on site by the contractors, the technicians, the laborers, and they always wait for a final word coming from a male boss. But don't be bogged down by this fact, because things have not always been the same, and things are not always going to be the same. So a very warm welcome to all the esteemed guests here and all fellow enthusiasts of architectural history. Today we are going to talk about an often overlooked aspect, that is contribution of women in building architectural heritage. For too long, the narrative of architectural building has been obscured by men, eclipsed by the names of men, and women, their contribution have been just cancelled as the footnotes in the annals of history. But that has not always been the case. From Julia Morgan, the first woman who was licensed to practice architecture, to women like Zaha Hadid, who is the winner of the famous Pritzker Award in architecture. Women have shattered all the stereotypes, and they have broken all the narratives that architecture and building are male-dominated fields. So today we are going to look back at the legacy of few such women who have built and shaped the architectural heritage around us. So far, we all have heard that there have been monarch connoisseurs, there have been master architects, and there have been designers who have invariably been men. But we have not acknowledged the contribution of so many of patronesses, so many of queens who had commissioned and funded building of massive structures, structures of heritage importance. Philanthropists, modern philanthropists, who have donated huge sums of money for building bridges, roads, and buildings of civic importance. And above all, the laborers, the women laborers who toil day and night to bring to us the buildings that we see around us, brick by brick. So this is a time to acknowledge contribution of all these unsung heroes around us who have contributed in the architectural landscape that we see today. So now the pertinent question is that, why is it important to acknowledge that a specific building is commissioned by a woman? Why is ascertaining the gender of an architect so important? Well, I'll tell you why. That is to acknowledge the agency which these women wielded, long before the stereotype of women being the weaker sex emerged. Women have been not only patrons, but they have also been designers, urban planners, they have been craftswomen, and as I told you, they have worked on ground in parity with what their male counterparts have been doing. So let us look at a few of the women who have changed the architectural landscape around us. Some of you you might know, and a few of whom you do not know. So today we are going to look at them. Okay. So first we begin with all the queens, the empresses, who had all the resources at their disposal, who had all the prowess, who had all the factors in their favor, and had all the authority to get these buildings commissioned. First one was Empress Livia. She was wife of the famous Roman Emperor Augustus, and excavation of her villa in Prima Porta in the north of Rome has actually cast light on her urban and architectural interventions. Then there has been this mausoleum at Halicarnassus, and again it was commissioned by a woman, wife of the Emperor of Caria, Artemisia. There has also been this famous Egyptian pharaoh, Queen Hatshepsut. She had commissioned building of the famous mortuary temple at Dar el-Bahari in Luxor, Egypt. It is said that she not only commissioned this building, but she took active interest in supervising the construction work of this temple as well. Then we come back home and we see that the Virupaksha temple in Pattadakal in Karnataka, it was also commissioned by a woman, a queen called Lok Mahadevi, and she dedicated it to the victory of her husband over the Pallavas. It is intricately designed and it served as a temple dedicated to Lord Shiva. And then we had queens who not only built ornamental structures, but structures of civic importance, multi-purpose structures like the stepwells. We had Rajput queens like the Waghela queen Ruda Devi, who built the Adalat stepwell, which is beautifully ornamented and an example of fine water architecture. Similarly, we had Queen Udaymati, who commissioned this Rani Ki Vav stepwell in Patan, which is dedicated to her husband Bhimdev. These structures not only served as reservoirs of rainwater, but also served as religious spaces. These were adorned with beautiful sculptures, and they also acted as resting places for the travelers passing by. So these structures had a multi-purpose function. So look at the acumen, the vision of these queens. They built structures of civic importance for all the people in their praja. And yes, one such queen was Queen Karnavati of Garhwal, who had built the famous canals in the Doon area. Then one of the most beautiful architectural specimens which dawns the skyline of Delhi till date, that is Humayun's tomb. And again, it was commissioned by a woman, Hamida Begum. She was wife of Emperor Humayun, and this kind of garden tomb was first of its kind to be built in the Indian subcontinent. It's built in red sandstone and marble, and it served as an inspiration for the Taj Mahal as well. Moving on to Afghanistan, a place which is synonymous with the subjugation of women's rights in the name of socio-cultural rules. But things were not always like these. There had been a Timurid empress there called Gauhar Shad. She commissioned building of madrasas, Juma mosques, and even plazas where there could be an intellectual exchange of ideas. And this Musalla complex, built in Herat in Afghanistan, serves as an epitome of the kind of prowess and authority that she held and the kind of vision that she had. Then Mehem Anga, I'm sure you must have heard of her. She was one of the strongest voices in the courts of Akbar. She was the Turkish wet nurse of Emperor Akbar, and she had commissioned building of the Khairul Manazil Mosque, right opposite the Purana Killa in Delhi. Then there was Fatehpuri Begum, one of the wives of Shah Jahan. She commissioned building of the Fatehpuri Masjid, which is the second largest mosque in Delhi. And yes, how can we forget contribution of Qudusiyya Begum? She was wife of Emperor Muhammad Shah Rangila, and during the absence of her husband, she undertook administration in her hands, and not only took care of administration, but built this beautiful palace garden in her name, which is adorned with a pavilion, a palace, and a beautifully manicured Char Bagh garden. This Qudusiyya Bagh in Delhi holds such historical significance that it is still visited by tourists from all over the world. Then there was a line of Begums of Bhopal. Now, since we are in Madhya Pradesh, legacy of the Begums of Bhopal cannot be ignored at all. These Begums of Bhopal were not only patrons of art and architecture, but authored many books too. And they were capable administrators who built important structures like tombs, like palaces, orphanages, schools, hospitals, madrasas, and whatnot. So first in the line of these Begums of Bhopal was Qudusiyya Begum, also known as Gauhar Begum. And she had got built this beautiful Gauhar Mahal Palace, which is still acting as the cultural center in the heart of Bhopal. And apart from that, she also commissioned an English engineer to build a waterworks to supply clean drinking water to the people of Bhopal. Next in line was the Shah Jahan Begum, who got built this beautiful Tajul Masjid, which is the largest mosque in Asia. Then was Sikandar Begum, who got built this beautiful Moti Masjid in Bhopal. And then the Sultan Jahan Begum. Well, Sultan Jahan Begum was again the second in line of the Begums of Bhopal, And she was instrumental in equipping all the medical facilities for the people of Bhopal. So the Sultania Zanana Hospital of Bhopal is also named after her. And of course, the Taj Mahal Palace of Bhopal, which is intricately designed palace, that is also in her, she can be credited with building that. Then we all know that Mumtaz Mahal was the inspiration behind the majestic Taj Mahal. But very few of us might know that Mumtaz Mahal, under her own authority, also commissioned building of a Zehra Bagh in Agra. Sadly, in 2024, one of the towers collapsed because of apathy in Agra, and many heritage enthusiasts like us wrote to the government to upkeep the preservation, the restoration of the Zehra Bagh as a remnant of Queen Mumtaz Mahal's legacy. And one of my most favorite building of all is the Ikmatu Daula tomb. It is a jewel box built in marble, beautifully, intricately designed. And guess what? It was again commissioned by a queen, Queen Noor Jahan. She was wife of Jahangir, and she dedicated this beautiful tomb to her father, Mirza Ghias Beg, who was also a vizier in Jahangir and Akbar's court. This was all about the queens, who had all the resources, who had all the influence to get all these buildings built. But let's move on to a few of the modern philanthropists who dedicated huge sums of money to build structures of civic and institutional importance. And first one was Rani Rashmani. The famous Dakshineshwar Kali temple that we see in Kolkata today, many of us would credit it to some saint or some priest, but actually it was commissioned by Rani Rashmani. And interestingly, she was born in a fisherman family. She was married to a zamindar. And after death of her husband, she decided to take his philanthropic feat forward and purchased around 20 acres of land in 1847. And she decided to build a temple dedicated to Lord Iskali in a 2-storied structure with 9 spires in typical Bengal school of architecture. And let me tell you, she faced grave resistance from the local priests, who abhorred that a Shudra woman was commissioning a holy site. But she fought against all odds, and now the Dakshineshwar Kali temple, that is for all to see. Not only this temple, but she dedicated huge sums of amount for the Imperial Library, the Presidency College as well. One such lady was Avabai Jijabai. Lady Avabai Jamshedji Jijabai was a wife of a very influential and wealthy Parsi businessman in Mumbai. And she is credited with donating a princely sum of 1.57 lakhs to build the famous Mahim Causeway. The Mahim Causeway connected the south of Bombay to its western and eastern suburbs. So slowly, apart from being just the wives and queens and the philanthropists, women started to venture into studying architecture, design, interiors. And then, apart from being just homemakers, they decided to draft plans, cities, buildings of importance. One such architect was Sophia Hayden Bennett. Design of Sophia Hayden Bennett was selected for the Columbian Exposition, and she was the first architect to pass out from MIT's architecture program. Then we had Urmila Yuli Chaudhary. Urmila Yuli Chaudhary was the first Indian architect to practice architecture, and she was the first associates of Pierre Jean Rey and Le Corbusier who were commissioned to design the city of Chandigarh. She was also one of those who designed the famous heritage Chandigarh chair, if you know. And apart from being the chief architect of Chandigarh, Yuli Chaudhary also designed many landmark buildings of Chandigarh, like the Government Polytechnic College, the Government Housing Sector 35, and many government schools of Chandigarh. Now, since we are talking about Chandigarh, let's also acknowledge efforts of Jane Ryu. Jane Ryu was an urban planner, and along with her husband, she was practicing in Africa when she was summoned by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru to draft the master plan of his utopian city, Chandigarh. She came to India and, along with her husband Maxwell Fry, drew the very initial blueprint of Chandigarh city, where she integrated housing with facilities like swimming pools, hospitals, schools, marketplaces, which was first of its kind in India. Then there has also been self-taught architects like D.D. Contractor. She was a woman of American descent who settled in India, came here, learned the vernacular building technique of Himachal Pradesh, and started practicing and building edifices of mud, stone, straw, and bamboo. And not only did she practice it herself, but she also imparted these skills to all the budding architects and future designers. Her famous design buildings include the Dharmala Institute in Palampur, and also the Sambhavna Institute in Palampur and the Dharmala Institute in Beed. And one of my most favorite architects of all, Yasmin Lari. Yasmin Lari, let me tell you, broken all the rules of patriarchy in Pakistan and became the first woman to practice architecture in Pakistan. She had a career spanning around 36 years. And during the course of her career, she designed fashionable brutalist villas for the elites of Pakistan. She restored many heritage structures in Lahore and in Peshawar, like the Sethi Mohalla. And again, she now dedicates herself to providing humanitarian relief for the poorest of the poor in Pakistan. And then, Zaha Hadid, winner of the Nobel Prize of Architecture, that is the Pritzker Award. She has actually purged the word impossible from architectural vocabulary. Her designs follow such superfluous geometry that you cannot help but gasp in awe. She's a woman who has designed many structures around the world and is known for her approach which breaks all the molds of architecture. Let me tell you this Heather Aliyev Center in Baku. It is an iconic landmark building that is donning the landscape of Azerbaijan till date. So this was all about the technocrats who made their intervention in the field of architecture and generated heritage, restored heritage. But there has also been few women, common women, who in their own capacity have contributed their bit, like the Jal Sahelis of Bundelkhand. The Jal Sahelis forms a network of women who are committed to preserving and reviving the traditional sources of water in the parched land of Bundelkhand. They regularly hold the Jal Panchayats, the Pani Panchayat, and offer Shramdan in reviving and repairing all the jhalras, the ponds, the check dams, the tube wells, and ensure that clean drinking water is available to each and everyone in the community. And last but not the least, let's not forget the contribution of hundreds of women laborers who toil day and night and literally devote their sweat and blood to erect these beautiful buildings that we see today, brick by brick. Acknowledging the legacy of all these women is only meant to have a more inclusive understanding of history. Women now are moving ahead in the field of architecture. They are designing buildings. They are creating socially responsible designs, more sustainable structures. But still, there are few impediments that they face. Like my friend discussed, there is a huge gender bias on sites that women encounter. Laborers, contractors refuse to listen to them. They refuse to take orders from them, no matter how qualified they are or how authoritative they are. And of course, there is a pay disparity that women face. And the top leadership position, that door is closed for most of the women. So the glass ceiling that we talk about, that does exist. But we are here to take inspiration from this legacy that these women have built when they did not have these resources that we have today. They decided to follow the conviction, they decided to follow the gut feeling and build this beautiful heritage for us to cherish. And it is now up to us to not only recognize talents of women, listen their voices, and to also value their opinions. Even if you're designing, you have to take into consideration what the women of the house have to say. It should not just be the men who dictate terms how a house should be designed or how a city should be designed. the onus lies on us. Even as citizens, when a city is being designed, it is up to you as women to give in your opinions that how the city could be designed better or could be made safer, how your houses could be made more inclusive, your kitchens could be more accommodative, and of course, each and every place of the house or the city or the world that we see today. So next time, all of you may come across a building, remember, it might just be built by a woman who might have considered building not just a brick and mortar structure, but a symbol of woman empowerment. That's my time. Thank you.